Hey everyone, I'm Rose and welcome to today's Sew Along. So today we're actually making this shirt behind me. So this shirt behind me really started, the whole process started when I found this amazing fabric at my local sewing shop. So me and my boyfriend had just come back from a surfing trip. So just so you know, I don't surf, but he does. And the fabric is blue stripes, but there's a little bleeding on the stripes, and the bleeding is actually a wave. And I thought this was super clever, and I had to buy it and make something for him. So this is purchased over the summer, and it's almost been a year now, and I'm finally getting around to this project. I made this for his birthday, like as an additional little present for him. And so when I initially bought the fabric, I was just thinking, make him a nice little C-neck, short sleeve shirt, like really nice for summer. But when I shared this with him, he really wanted a button up. So I just said, okay, let's make you a button up. So he also shared with me a shirt that he has from his own personal wardrobe that he really loved the fit of. And what I ended up doing is I traced the pattern and used it as a pattern for a template for this. So it's been a while since I myself have sewn a button up. So that was a little bit of a process for me, especially since I've never made a pattern for a button up. So that was really fun. And in this video, I kind of take you around the process of the patterning and making sure all the seams are matching. And I only ran into a couple of problems with the pattern. So one of the problem was the collar. I ended up cutting the collar a few different times because the length wasn't correct. And it was kind of only minor changes, so that I was really happy about. And the only other thing that didn't exactly work the first go around was the sleeve, but it was underneath here where it was kind of just about 1 additional inch of fabric underneath the arm, but I was able to correct that by just trimming that back, blending to 0 at the opening of the sleeve, and everything kind of worked out. Pretty shocked because I went right from the actual flat pattern to cutting the real fabric, which is something I absolutely almost never do, but I'm really happy with the outcome. So now I have this like really wonderful button-up pattern that my boyfriend really loves the fit of, and now I can kind of, surprise him at some point in the future with maybe some other cute little button-ups. That's kind of my idea. I usually sew for myself, so it's taken a couple years for me to sew something again for him, but it's just nice to have that in my pattern stash so I can surprise him, for some small things. Overall, he really loves this. The fit is pretty perfect. Everything ended up working out so well. And let's take you along the process. To begin our patterning process, I'm starting on the back just because this feels the easiest to me. And so we have a yoke here as well, which I'm taking into account for. So I tried to line it up with the straight line on our graph paper to make it a little bit easier. And then I'm kind of just straightening and flattening the shirt as if it were a flat pattern itself. The next part is to connect all of the dots and add my seam allowance. So I use this to help to kind of true the pattern in the end as well to make sure everything is lining up. Our next step here that I'm doing is I'm just measuring the shirt and comparing it to my flat pattern. So I want this to be quite accurate, and I am using my measuring tape just to make sure that the armhole is the same length as the armhole on the shirt and whatnot, so that it doesn't come out smaller. It comes out quite accurate, which actually worked out really well for this pattern. After the back pattern was complete, I moved on to our front. So the front has that fold over for the button placket, and I just made sure that everything was matching up, also at the side seams and at the armholes, and I also then went back and remeasured everything, comparing it against our actual reference sample. Overall, this was it's a little bit different than what I'm used to. So I usually do like women's wear, but it was a really nice challenge, and to be honest, like everything kind of ended up working out quite well. I did have a couple of issues with the collar later down the line, but it's such a small pattern piece. So, and I was also able to recut these quite easily and adjust it on my flat pattern. Was working with quite a limited amount of pattern paper, but you can see here that I'm actually working on the sleeve. So normally the front sleeve and the back sleeve curve have a slightly different curve. This accounts for the back portion. However, I really didn't have the pattern paper to really work and create this little change in difference. So once I transfer this to like an Illustrator file, this is something I would make an alteration of. Okay, so I'm ready for the next part of the project. Everything is already cut out, and I'm just thinking about the construction really. So what is going to happen, I believe, is I've already sewn something together, and then I realized it's not correct. So I'm really starting to study the garment. That should be always the first step. I realized I sewed the shoulder together and that's not correct. So I'm going to remove the shoulder seam. I have the back to the back yoke sewn. And then what's going to happen is the yoke and the shoulder seams will be sewn together. And then it flips down to cover the inside yoke seam. So it's this right here. So you can see here, this is clean finished. It's clean finished at the shoulder, clean finished here. So what happens is it all kind of gets sandwiched together. And then you can either stitch in the ditch, which I see they just did an edge stitch here on the outside of the garment to clean everything. I think that's what they did. Yeah, you know, I think it's all kind of up into your own interpretation. I kind of thought of something where I am going to attach everything by the shoulders, and then I think I'm going to hand stitch this, the seam closed on the inside. I really enjoy hand stitching, and I always feel like this is more neater. I can always hide my stitches better. So that's the approach I'm gonna do. The side seams is going to be the like flat felts. So I think this is really nice because this is a knit garment as opposed to the woven, and this is going to add a nice bit of structure. So I've already sewn the one side seam together, so the wrong sides together. So now I just have to flip it so the right sides together and then press the seam towards the back and add that little top stitch for that to be complete. And then we're gonna head to the next step. So I think what I'm gonna do right now is remove the shoulder, and then I'm going to sew the next side together, and then we can attach the shoulder and the yoke together at the same time. So I removed all of the stitching that was wrong, and here I'm going back and just kind of adding everything back together. So the back yoke is now attached to the front where is left and right side of our pattern pieces. And then on top of that, I'm attaching the inside yoke pattern. So everything is going to be sandwiched together, attached at the shoulder. And then when this is sewn, that internal yoke is going to fold down and with the right sides out. So with that little stripe pattern will be outside. And then I'm going to roll the seam allowance underneath and hand sew that together. So I'm also obviously reducing the seam allowance at the shoulder seam so that everything is nice and not bulky. And just to add also like a little note here, I've already attached the side seams together with that flat felt seam. So in this part of the project, you can now see that the seam allowance is hidden in the shoulder seam. So that's from the step that we had just done. And now I'm kind of just smoothing everything down. I want to pin the neckline so that nothing shifts too much. And because this is a stripe layout, I really want to take my time. It is an uneven stripe. There is like a lot of changes in the stripe. Obviously you can tell. And I really want to make sure that's as straight as possible. And I'm pinning the seam allowance underneath here. And then I'm going to add the whip stitching. I'm going to whip stitch this closed so it looks nice and neat. I always have a problem with top stitching because I always feel that, or stitching in the ditch, I always feel like I kind of catch the outer layer, and this seems more neat to me. Another pattern piece that I had just some slight hiccups with was the sleeve. It was quite small. It was just the length of the sleeve cap was a little bit longer than the actual sleeve opening in the front and back of the shirt. So while I was sewing, I noticed this, and what I ended up doing was just removed about an inch from that pattern or from the fabric, and then blended that to 0 at the hem of the shirt of the sleeve. So this is another little correction that I had to make to my flat pattern, just so that when I make this again, which I think I will, because this really ended up fitting my boyfriend quite well, that all the corrections are made. And then I'm also here, this is the inseam of our sleeve. And this will also be flat felt. So all the seam allowance is nice and hidden. And then I go in and add that top stitch later. So here's before the top stitch. And then this is me. I'm just making like little notes, just some things to correct for the flat pattern itself. The last step here for the sleeve is obviously to add the sleeve cap. So I just started a point after I align all my pieces and then begin to sew everything together. I always like to add a little customization to the pieces I make for people, just so that it makes it extra special. So I ended up making this little patch for the back of the shirt. One of the steps I was dreading a bit was this buttonhole. I just got this machine, so this was actually like my first time using it. It ended up being so much easier, and I don't know why I was so nervous about it. This is the final piece. Let me know what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.